Okay, so we have a new episode of Legends and Leaders, and today it's great to have Dara here. You're behind an incredible restaurant, Stay Less, that's been so transformative to New York and brought so many interesting people to the scene and provided unique experiences. And you've done a lot of good with it too through the recent Mother's Day initiative that you had and other stuff. So I'm just excited to have you here and to get into your story.
Happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So early on, how did your passion for hospitality and being a restaurateur, how did that begin?
It just I kind of fell into it, to be honest. I had a college job working in a restaurant as a waiter. Assumed at the time it was just, a college job. And then when I finished college in 2005, I started working in finance, had a good run for a few years. And then the financial crisis happened in 2008. So that's when I made a pivot back to hospitality. So it was, at the time when I started, it wasn't something that I expected to continue doing. But it was something that I had a passion for. And, when the opportunity came up in 2008 to get back into the restaurant business, it's something that I kind of jumped at.
Mm-hmm. So you had this interest kind of in the space and stuff, but, you had a bit of a real estate background. How did that real estate background, especially with post-grad apartments, kind of help you build what you're building now?
I just think it helped me in terms of, dealing with processes, lead management, email management, things that a lot of restaurateurs maybe don't focus on. But, I guess incorporating technology into what I do in the restaurant space, I guess the lead management process, helps me with, maintaining my network, the follow-up, the follow-through. So it was definitely some skills in there that I learned from doing, the apartment, and the real estate stuff that kind of, gave me some resources when I was working in the restaurant business.
Mm-hmm. So like you mentioned, a lot of this is relationships. Like, how did you learn to craft great relationships and be around, incredible people?
I think I've just been fortunate. I've had a lot of great mentors in my life. And it's something that I think, you have a natural ability to do it. Obviously you can improve on what you're good at, but I think it came naturally to me at a young age. When I was 14, I started detailing cars, and every day I would meet, 50 new people. And, I would curate some of those relationships. So I think that's kind of where it started.
Mm-hmm. And are there some kind of techniques that you use with relationships? Because, you've been pretty good at them. Like, what kind of techniques do you use to build them and to keep them and to grow them?
I mean, I think the main thing is being genuine. You can't force something. If it's a high profile person or if it's a regular diner, I give people their space. I, obviously let the relationships unfold. But just, don't try too hard and know who you are and be yourself.
Yeah, definitely agree. I think the genuine aspect is so important. So you had a bit of experience, in the dining space. There was a club you were involved in. Like, what was most impactful from your dining experiences to help you create Say Less and land on this unique concept of Asian fusion?
So I've always worked in the Asian fusion space. Say Less is the fourth restaurant I've worked on in that space in New York City over the last 15 years. So I definitely had, a strong network in that space and a following. But I just think, every place that I've worked at, every experience I've had, I've gained something. It could be on the experiential part. It could just be on the relationships part. Every experience I have in life or professionally, I just try to, even if it's a failure or something that ended up not being profitable, it's like, well, what can you learn from each experience?
Yeah, you got to learn, right? You try to avoid mistakes by learning, by being proactive with that. So how did you land on the Say Less concept and this idea?
So like I said, I've been working in the space with Asian fusion food for, a long time in New York City. And I always felt there was a void and, a need for something more. So coming out of the pandemic, it was something that I'd been working on. And, I got introduced to my partners. They had a pre-existing restaurant that was already there. And we kind of transformed the space and, it really took off really quickly.
And Dara, what went into transforming the space? Because it's got a unique design, and I think people really like some of the privacy aspects of it. How did you come up with the ideas of how to make the space?
Well, I think the private rooms is definitely a staple in what I do. Large groups, family style. So obviously curating the private dining rooms into something that's appealing for the clients that we have. And then just, giving it a high end, Asian vibe to the space, but also making it photogenic, Instagram worthy, those are all things that went into our design.
Mm-hmm. So you've gotten some great clientele like Kevin Hart, Wahlberg. You've been able to attract some of these people. Like, how did you start to build that up? Was this through your other previous dining experiences that you were in? How did you start to get them to come over to what you're building now?
Well, I think, when you have a concept that people gravitate towards, people hear about it from publicists, from, PR, from, relationships. So, some of these clients are people that I've taken care of, for over 10 years. And then they're friends of other clients. Obviously with social media, everyone sees what's going on. I have a lot of, high profile celebrities commenting to me about what they see on social media about the restaurant. And sometimes I'm kind of taken back that they pay attention, but they do.
Mm-hmm. How do you use social media? You mentioned the importance of it. Like, how do you really use it effectively and organically? Like, what's some of the maybe techniques that you use, like besides posting the place and some of the great events and things that happen at it?
Well, I think obviously, the food is a staple behind, our success. So really showcasing the food through social media, but there's a lot of different layers to it. There's YouTube, there's TikTok, there's influencers. So just, kind of hitting on all of those. But just, I guess social media is a platform to really, highlight with what you do well.
Totally. So you've got a location. I think people like the spot that you're in. It's a unique spot as well. Can you just talk a little bit about how you found the spot that you're in and why it's the best place for you guys?
So we're centrally located in Manhattan. We're on 38th Street and 7th Avenue. So if you really look at a map of New York, or even, the five boroughs, we're kind of right in the middle. We have easy access to the Lincoln Tunnel, the Holland Tunnel, Grand Central Station, Penn Station, and then we have Times Square, Madison Square Garden. So we're really in the hub and the heart of Manhattan. We really capitalize on a lot of things that take place at Madison Square Garden. If it's sporting events, it's a Knicks game, it's a Rangers game, concert. There's so many things that go on in Madison Square Garden, and we're 4 blocks away. So we've really built a great following of people that come to us before and after events that take place there.
Yeah, I think the location you guys have is incredible because like there's all these athletes just come over from games, like you mentioned. So you've got like we talked a little bit about like the Asian fusion style that you have. What goes into like creating the menu? You've got a pretty robust menu. What goes into like creating a menu and picking the right type of items and dishes for it?
Yeah, so there are certain dishes that are staples of what I've worked with, over the last 10 years. So some of those dishes are obviously, built into our menu. But we obviously always try to, keep the menu fresh and introduce new items. So we're not really trying to reinvent the wheel, just give people what they want. You know, we're a Chinese restaurant. We say Asian fusion, but we definitely put some Asian inspired dishes on there that are not Chinese, but they're in the same space. So, trying different dishes when I travel, when I go places, I try things, I see things, and then, we try to emulate them on our menu sometimes.
Is there like a testing process that you have? Like, do you put something new on the menu? Like, how long do you wait to before you're like, okay, we should continue with this or we should get rid of this?
I think a lot of times we know if something's going to do well. How well it does obviously is the variable. We don't know, but there's certain things that we put on the menu that, it's what people want. Certain things surprise us and do better than we expected, but we don't put something on the menu until we actually test it out first. We run it as a special. And then if we see people, really ordering it, then we'll put it on the menu.
Right, makes sense. What are kind of some maybe you have like some interesting stories or experiences that have happened at Say Less that maybe wouldn't have happened in other places? Could you share some of those?
Um, Honestly, every day is an experience there. Like I said, we're in the heart of Manhattan. Um, Even days when you think that there might not be anything going on, it always turns into, a fun, vibrant atmosphere. We have the private dining rooms. We take care of, a lot of big groups. So people come to us because, we, I guess, offer a level of hospitality that's different than what else is out there. Between the cuisine, the dining experience, the vibe, the level of service, we really cater towards our clients. So I think, through word of mouth, through social media, people talk about it. And, when we're a destination for when people come to New York City. In terms of one specific experience, there's so many different things that have happened at the restaurant. There's just too many to, pinpoint one or two of them.
Mhm. So you've got an interesting cuisine. You've got different items that you put on. Preparation is such an important aspect of what you guys do in terms of how you prepare food and things like that. Like, you just talk a little bit about the impact that the preparation you guys have done, because it's unique preparation, has had on the business and what goes into some of that.
So you're talking about the food specifically,
Yeah,
or just
food
the businesses?
preparation.
Yeah, so we have a great chef, who commands the kitchen, and he has his whole team, and they do a lot of prep during the day. They continue to prep at nighttime, but everyone knows their role. There's people that specialize in different departments. If it's chopping, if it's prepping, if it's cooking, if it's on the wok, if it's on the steamer. I think really having a good team that's seamless and hardworking, that really buys into the brand. I think we're fortunate we have a great team.
Yeah, definitely. So why did you call it Say Less? Like, what was behind the name?
So I think there was a need for a place in New York that was kind of, originally it started out as a members only concept before the whole members only concept was the thing. I felt like there was a need for a members only concept for the culture, but obviously as a dining experience. So that's how the name started. The first name that popped into my head was Say No More, but that was too wordy. So I thought of, well, what's a different way to say no more? Say less came up. I wrote down SAYLESS on a piece of paper. I looked at it. I said that can't be the name. It doesn't look right. So I thought of what's a different way to say. Then I thought of sensei, but sensei is SAI. So I changed the A to an E, and we had Say Less.
And do you think the name has been a big aspect of the success? Like, do you think it's contributed to it at all? Because it kind of gives off this vibe of like a little more secretive or kind of out, more private.
Yeah, I think the venue, the name, the location, the cuisine, everything just came together. It was like a perfect storm. But I think the name, the logo, everything worked. I kind of formulated in my head during the pandemic, and once it came to life, it just kind of it almost exceeded my expectations.
It's great to hear. How did you kind of get it started financially? Like, you had some experience previously. Did you have to bring on other investors? Like, what did it take to get it off the ground?
So I have some great partners, and we have some silent investors as well. But we have a great team. So everyone kind of just does their part, and it came together pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm. How quickly did it come together from idea to opening?
I think the hardest thing was to really find the location and find the equation that made sense. So that process took a couple years, but once we identified the location, it happened in a couple months.
Mm-hmm. And what are some maybe of like what's kind of your long term vision for Say Less? Like, do you want it to branch out? Do you want to have multiple different restaurants in different locations? Do you want to focus on this one? Like, what's kind of your long term overall vision?
Yeah, I think any restaurateur, their goal is to obviously expand the brand. But one thing I've learned from my previous experiences in hospitality is more is not always better. So I'm careful in terms of the expansion and what markets we go to, how quickly we expand. Because I've worked with some different brands that overexpanded too quickly, and they kind of destroyed what they had, going on. So obviously expansion is definitely in the plans. We've done several pop-ups, around, high-profile events, NBA All-Star Weekend, Super Bowl, those kind of, tentpole events. So I think, continuing the pop-ups, but also identifying, where the next location would be, if that's in New York or if it's in a different market. I think the Say Less concept obviously works in New York because it's New York City, but there's a lot of markets that it probably doesn't work as well. Just in terms of having the traction of clientele that comes to town. We're a destination for a lot of out of towners. When they're in New York, they come to the restaurant. And I don't think you get that in a lot of markets. And then obviously the price point is not, appealing to every market out there. So, we could obviously always pivot and change the pricing and everything, but it's not the same, concept.
Mm-hmm. If you were to expand to different places, like what are you kind of thinking? If you're able to share.
I think some of the markets that would work for us, obviously LA, Las Vegas, Miami, Atlanta, Dallas. I think those are some of the main markets that we would focus on.
Mm-hmm. And Miami's become a so much very different place over the last couple of years. So how do you manage like the nightlife aspect of it, like the different type of hours there?
It's been a challenge. Obviously, I have two young kids now, so before I had a family, it was much easier. But just doing what you love and something that you're passionate about, it's a lot easier to get up and go to work every day. And obviously, working on something that's successful and people are gravitating towards it, gives you an extra drive. But I think the main thing is just, do what you love and, don't force it. And, you know, if you put the work in, success usually follows. Not not always is the first thing you do successful, or you got to take some failures along the road, but really find what you're passionate about, and keep building, and eventually the success will follow.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to look at it. I mean, you've been able to be consistent for many years in this space. Like, how have you been able, like, what's kind of went into your consistency? Like, how have you been able to be disciplined for so long to do multiple different restaurants and now this one?
I think just putting in the work. That's a lot of people want the success without putting the work in. It took me 10 years from when I started working in hospitality in Manhattan to actually opening up my first restaurant. I was doing it for other people, and I was working 6 days a week for 10 years. Missed a lot of holidays, a lot of birthday parties, a lot of family events. But putting in the work, building the relationships, being genuine, and then sometimes getting out of your comfort zone, doing things that are a little bit outside the box. I'm heading to Las Vegas tomorrow for NBA Summer League. That's an extension of what we do at the restaurant. A lot of my clients are there, so just going out there, having a presence.
Mm-hmm. Right. So, there's certain types of restaurants attract certain types of people. How do you convey the clientele that you want through the image you've crafted? Like, what kind of, like, how do you go and do something like that?
I think it just happens organically. Obviously we cater towards a certain clientele and demographic, but we are definitely we have people from all parts of the country, all parts of the world that come to Say Less. We have the most famous soccer players in the world, famous music artists, famous athletes, and then we have regular working class people. So you obviously hear and see a lot about the high profile people, but without having a backbone of regular clients and hardworking local individuals, the restaurant would not be successful. So it's great that we get celebrities and high profile people, but the people that really make us long lasting and here to stay are the people that support us every week and every month.
It's nice to hear. Just the last question I have: what do you aspire to do now? What are some of your short-term and long-term goals, let's say, over the next 10 years?
I think continuing to build out the Say Less brand. If that's different, you know different products associated with the brand. If it's condiments, or if it's apparel and merch, or if it's new locations, continue to do that. And then obviously figuring out what the next brand is that's a parallel to Say Less, and the next step up from what we're doing at Say Less. So always looking at the different opportunities out there. There's a lot of opportunities that come my way, but obviously you can't just jump at everything that comes your way. So just continue to work hard, build relationships, and grow.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I think what you've done has been pretty incredible, and I know that it's brought in a lot of interesting people, and just that area, it's really lit it up. And so I'm excited to see your further expansion, what you want to do next, and I appreciate you taking the time to do this. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me, Ben. And when you're in New York, please come by the restaurant.